Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm doing good, no complaints. It's finally nice weather up here. I can actually sit outside.
Good. Oh my gosh, I love it. Where are you?
So we are quarantining in the Adirondacks.
Oh,
So we're
nice.
all the way upstate New York.
I love it. I love New York, so that's awesome. And it's nice and green there
Yeah,
right now, so that's great.
and it's much welcomed, especially with such harsh winters that we get up here. So
Yes.
celebrate all
Awesome.
the green while we can.
Definitely, definitely. So, hey, everybody who's joined us today, we're with Vanessa Opal June, and she is a wonderful therapeutic chef and mindful cooking and eating. And we're lucky to have you today. So, thank you so much for joining us. I'm
Oh, thank
Victoria
you
with
for having
Nannocare.
me. Hi.
So, give me a little bit of background and how you got into food therapy and meditative cooking, and what exactly is it?
Sure. So I'll start with the basics. I'll start with what therapeutic cooking is.
Yes.
So, therapeutic cooking is a creative outlet um, that uses cooking and eating and food to improve your overall well-being. Um, People use it as a form of personal self-care, which is
Hmm.
what I'm an advocate of, and that's what I work with people to do. It's also used as a form of family bonding. Some corporations are even using it as team bonding exercises.
Oh, wow, that's
Which,
awesome.
when I found out about that, I said, that is so cool, because if you can work under that kind of pressure of
Oh my
cooking
gosh.
together, I
Right.
think you can kind of get through anything.
Absolutely. Yes. Don't burn the toast.
Oh, exactly. And more recently, I actually found out that a growing number of mental health clinics and therapists actually use cooking as a form of therapy to improve the mental health of their patients.
Wow.
So I like finding out more and more as I continue to work within it and doing that research and finding out, you know, how how it's being recognized as something that, really drastically improves your overall well-being.
Definitely. Yes. So tell me a little bit more about what really got you interested in it, aside from just your own, personal wellness and just wanting to, eat better or even kind of maybe bond with your own family.
Well, I actually started off with cooking professionally, which, if you've even watched any of those reality cooking shows,
I do.
it, it's far from calming. It's a very stressful, high intensity um, place to work.
Right.
And so I noticed that, while I wasn't necessarily cooking for pleasure while I was at work, I still looked forward to coming home and having those moments to myself to cook. It was
Yes.
therapeutic. It was just so calming. Even all day while I'm chopping and running around like a maniac and sweating, I'm still in my head thinking about what I'm going to make when I get home from work.
Right.
So
Right.
cooking on cooking on cooking. And as I got older and I really started to think about what I wanted to use my passions and talents for, I knew that I wanted to find a way of encouraging people to use cooking as a way to feel better instead
Right.
of it being the stressful, sorry, quarantining at
It's
home if you
okay.
heard the
Yeah,
barking.
it's okay. He's having fun too. He's outside.
Yes, I guess so. Um, yeah, I really wanted to encourage people to use it not just as a form of sustenance or, running home and slapping a meal on the table. I wanted people to realize that, it can serve as something that's, nourishing your mind and your spirit aside from just your body.
Definitely.
Um, and then I started to kind of put little pieces of that together until I realized, oh, I think I always have been doing this, when I'm cooking with my family or when I'm
Yes.
cooking with friends, or I'm always the person that people will call for recipes. And when they first call me, they sound all, oh my God, my family is coming over and it's the holidays and I don't know what to do. And I say, okay, breathe in,
Mm-hmm.
breathe out. And
Yes.
then they're like, wow, I just called you for a recipe, but now I'm starting to feel so much better.
Good. Yeah.
And I wanted to kind of continue that where I'm showing people that, cooking isn't about your skill. It's not about, your final product that you're putting down on the plate. It's about the process and the love that you're putting into, the whole exercise of making that meal.
Definitely, it's a journey. So, well, I know a lot of people, they do get frazzled or they get worried, with cooking. Or myself, I love to cook. So
Mm.
for me, I do feel it like it is therapeutic, and it's a great bonding exercise, like you said, even with my niece or my significant other, my sisters. So that's something that I really love. What tips do you have for people who cooking is not their thing, or if they say, oh, I really don't like cooking, or I don't know if it's going to be therapeutic? Should they take baby steps, or what do you think?
Well, what I start with is explaining what therapeutic cooking is not. What therapeutic cooking is not is a cooking lesson. So, I always encourage people to find creative outlets that they're interested in and that suit them.
Yes.
So I have plenty of people who say, I really want to do something creative, but I know for sure I don't want to cook. And that is completely okay. Don't ever force yourself to try to do something for the sake of self-care if it's just going to end up stressing you out a lot
Right.
more, So, I do encourage people to, if they are still interested and they're a little intimidated because they don't really consider themselves a home cook,
Hmm.
I ask them to think about what their favorite meal is. Start really simple. What's your favorite thing to make at home? One person I asked a few days ago, she said, I love spaghetti and meat sauce. And I said, all right, well, that's what we're going to make. And
Awesome.
she goes, but I already know how to make it. And I
It's
said, but
okay. Yeah.
do you know how to slow down and
Mm.
concentrate on the process and start to enjoy making this meal? You
Right.
enjoy having the finished product in front of you and eating it because it's delicious. But, let's start here. Start with something you're a little bit familiar with so that you're not um, setting yourself up in your head for this epic failure because you think that this is Hell's Kitchen and
It's
that,
like, ah, what's happening?
exactly, and that if you don't get it right, um, then it's a failure, which is completely untrue. But, we are programmed in our society to constantly think like that. If we're not producing and we're not, producing with perfection,
Hmm.
then it's it's a waste of our time. You know, we should be looking to do something else. Everything is always with this, line of perfection, and that pressure that goes into it.
Right.
So, I got on Zoom with her and I said, all right, I have all the ingredients, and she had them too.
I
And
love it.
we just started making a really simple meat sauce together.
That's
And,
awesome.
I was just asking some prompting questions to her, like, when was the last time that you just kind of started to chop your onions and your mind just blanks out and all you're experiencing are the smells,
Oh,
and the feeling and really concentrating on what's happening right in front of you and how all of your senses are in tune with this. And she stopped chopping for a second and she said that she actually never thought of that because usually while she's making this meal that she loves so much,
hmm.
she's thinking, um, all the chores that she has to do as soon as she's done with her meal, what her work schedule is going to be like tomorrow, how many emails she has to answer before she
Oh,
goes to bed. I mean, these are all things that are common to all of us.
all
We
of
know them
us.
all. But, you know, if we're not taking at least 20 minutes to ourselves a day where we're pushing all of those things out and just focusing on one thing that brings us joy, that's where burnout comes, you know?
Yes.
Um, And so, through a little bit of conversation and just when it fell silent, I just allowed it to be silent because that's when I knew that she was just getting into her zone, you
Good.
know. And when she was done, she realized it was the same exact experience, you
Hmm.
know, all the things that she always does to make this meat sauce, but it felt different
Oh, that's
because
awesome.
she took the time to really enjoy the experience and say, I'm not going to worry about those emails. Those emails will wait. Um, I don't have to worry about the laundry. If it, gets done an hour later than it should, that's okay too.
It's
You
okay,
know,
right? Don't beat yourself
and
up over it.
exactly, and I told her, even if this is just the one meal where you're doing this, you know, until you start to get used to putting it into other things that you cook,
Hmm.
that's okay. But then also, what's nice about it is that um, it actually did encourage her to want to, explore some other different types of cooking and meals. But again, that's not necessarily the point of what therapeutic cooking is,
Right.
but it actually got her so excited to have this one moment in her day where she can just turn off everything and enjoy the process.
Oh, I love that. So is that what your typical classes look like? And do you do it like a series or is it just one? Or how do you usually try and, model that?
Well, I offer three different levels of service so that first and foremost, anything that I do, I want it to be accessible to people. It's really important to me. I grew up, very poor in the projects in Harlem, and wellness was just not something that we talked about, not that we didn't have the luxury of it,
Right.
So I try to create different ways where all of my services can be accessible, no matter what your price point is.
That's awesome.
So I offer online classes, which are workshops. So,
Okay.
a bunch of people tune in, but they know ahead of time what we're going to cook. Everybody gets
Cool.
the ingredient list. We all kind of cook it together. Sometimes just having a little bit of company while you're doing it feels nice
It does.
too. And then I offer one-on-one classes. So
Okay.
if somebody says, hey, they would like the service where, we're kind of coming together to make a meal, and I help them through the process of, learning to shake the anxiety, the performance anxiety of making the food, or learning how to tune everything else out so that they can enjoy the process, then we do that together.
Right.
And then I also offer like 3 month and 6 month coaching classes, which are going to be way more immersive. So those are going to be about, really examining what your relationship is with food,
Mm-hmm.
how to foster a healthier, more positive relationship with cooking and eating, and how it affects your spiritual and emotional well-being.
Wow, that is awesome. So what type of feedback do you get? And I mean, I'm sure it's positive and people they really don't realize, like you said, how connected they are to food aside from sustenance and just, eating it and it tastes good. What other feedback have you gotten that has really touched you?
Um, I have one client who has a lot of health issues that have been making it incredibly difficult for her to enjoy her food, which I completely understand. She said that it's just gotten to a point where she's just on bone broth. She can
Oh,
certainly she could eat more, but she's just emotionally tired in the morning. She's like, I don't want to deal with it. It's just going to be, bone broth, and a couple of raw veggies until,
oh,
I decide that I'm motivated enough to make myself a meal. Because all the things that she was used to eating and she really enjoyed, uh, she couldn't, she couldn't have in her body anymore.
right.
So now this was a point of, you know, taking into consideration all of her body's needs, and then creating a bespoke menu for her. I created a full menu for her that she could use for an entire week with all of the, fruits and vegetables and everything else that she can eat. And she
Yes.
probably has eaten all the time, but doesn't it make you feel so much better when you're seeing all of these ingredients presented to you in a different light? Has she
Yes.
made a gluten-free pasta salad before? Sure, plenty of times. But, you know, has she seen it presented to her, on a menu that was dedicated just for her and her well-being, where she knows that all of these ingredients are going to be loved and cared for as she processes them, so
That's
that
so
she knows
awesome.
that she just made a meal for herself that was a form of self-love. And she said when she saw the menu that she was just so emotional about it, not
Oh.
because the anything that I put on there was new to her, but
Hmm.
because she finally after so long she actually started to feel excited about cooking and eating again. And that meant
Yes.
a lot to me. That's how I want people to feel whenever they're examining their relationship with food.
Yes, no, I absolutely love that. That's so awesome and really heartfelt just because there are a lot of restrictions and people they don't even realize that you can look at food in a different light and when it touches them that way, especially you took the time to create something so, specific for her. It was really exclusive, so that's awesome. What about for children though? There's a lot of picky eaters out there, and being in quarantine, chicken nuggets and French fries go but so far. What kind of help have you given in that area?
Well, when it comes to kids, I really do just encourage parents to um, stop putting so much pressure on their kids to, eat certain things. At the end of the day, I tell them, again, I'm not a dietitian, so, they come to me with a lot of questions with that, and I'm like, that's not what we're doing. The point of therapeutic eating and cooking is that it should feel good. You
Right,
know, if their doctor is saying that they're completely healthy and they're growing, but they just love their chicken nuggets and, eating junk food every once in a while, as long as it's not every day,
right.
let them be. However, if you do want to incorporate things, it should be where you're not making a separate meal for them. You know,
Yes,
you got to start to find ways of bringing it together. Your kids love chicken nuggets and you don't like chicken nuggets, and now you're making two separate meals. It'll start to get a little messy there and it's going to get tiring.
right,
Perhaps you can introduce them to a much nicer form of chicken nuggets where it's going to be, you're taking some really nice organic chicken, breading it yourself, you know, oven baking it so that it's nice and
yes.
crispy, and then giving it to them with a nicer, dipping sauce than just, a ketchup or a honey mustard.
Barbecue or honey mustard,
Exactly.
right?
You know, um, so that you're kind of transitioning them into the world of growing up food, showing them grown up versions of what they like,
Yes.
and I've definitely been told that that's been very helpful.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, my niece, for instance, she just eats maybe like four things: peanut butter and jelly, white rice, pasta. But I find that when I cook with her and she understands what goes into the food, she's more inclined to try it. So if she sees it being made and she gets interested. So you're right, it does pique their interest and it's like, just try it. You might like it. If you don't, that's okay. So I love that you said don't put so much pressure. It does
And
get
that's
hard.
important too. It is okay that even if you make a grown up version of the chicken nuggets, and they try it and they still say that they don't want it, it's okay. You have to be 100% okay with the fact and praise them for the fact that they did try it. Um,
Yes.
because constantly forcing, children to try and eat things that they don't want, or chastising, in some sort of way, if their reception of that food is not what you expected, will in the long term start to develop unhealthy eating habits for them, even if it's subconscious.
Wow.
You want them to constantly always have a healthy relationship with food, where um, they're eating when they're hungry and they're eating what they like when they're hungry.
Yes.
Period. That's the healthiest foundation that you can have for mindful eating.
Right.
If you're, you know, constantly asking them to eat when they're not hungry, it throws off that instinctual balance that they have, that we all have,
Yes.
where they're like, okay, and now I'm starting to only eat to feel good, or, when I'm
When I feel
sad.
bad, right.
Exactly. And you don't want to confuse emotions with your physical hunger, which is the whole point of why we should eat. But does food give us pleasure? Hell yes.
Yes,
A good
absolutely.
meal is
Yes.
like the best thing ever, but we should be coming to it as, a secondary. That's just a bonus. You're
Right.
hungry, your body gives you that signal. You say that you're going to eat, so you make your meal,
Hmm.
and you eat it. So satisfying your body's natural signals has to come first. But then the bonus is that it's something that's amazing and delicious and also emotionally satiates you.
Yes, exactly. What about gardening? I love I love fresh herbs. That's one of my favorite things to use when I cook. Just, I feel like it transforms the meal. It gives it good depth and it really just adds some great flavor without putting, salt or pepper or anything. Do you have any good tips and tricks on gardening? Like if you're in an apartment or if you're in, like you're in the Adirondacks and it's really cold in the winter, what do you do for fresh herbs or any like growing your own food?
Well, before I answer that, for anybody who loves to have really fresh food like that, but doesn't have the luxury or the time or the green thumbs to grow anything that is 100% okay, your local
Yes.
farmer's market got your back.
Yes. Yes,
Go
they do.
there, get all of your herbs and everything that you need, and you will be happy there. Um, Over here, actually, it's really interesting. I don't really get a lot of direct sunlight in my house, the way that it's situated.
Uh-huh.
So, because there's so many trees, I try to like grow in a little raised box in my yard, and nothing grows.
Oh,
Ferns will finally start to grow because it's just so shaded. Although on the other side of it, it is really nice because I'm sitting outside and it's 10 degrees cooler in my house than anywhere else. Yay to nature.
I know.
But having a window box where you can grow your herbs, all they need is lots of sunlight and a little bit of water, and you're good to go. And then you just snip off the leaves as you need them. Don't
Okay.
snip all the way at the bottom. Once you do that, you better use it all, but it's
Oh,
not going to come back.
good to
But
know.
having fresh herbs is such a great way of imbuing flavor, exactly like you were saying, without having to oversalt or use lots of other seasonings, especially, you know, in the spring and the summer when everything is just in full bloom. It also just feels so much better to eat seasonally.
It does. It really does. And then do you recommend seeds or can you use the bottoms of the herbs or whatever that you get from the farmer's market or from your grocery store to plant it?
I've definitely done that. If you're going to use snippets of old, not old, but used
Used.
pieces of food in order to grow new, I would start that process at the beginning of winter.
Oh,
You keep
wow.
them like, for example, like I always cut off the bottoms of my celery,
Uh-huh.
and then I keep those in water, and they'll start to grow brand new celery. It obviously takes a while, so if you know chop it off. If you had a nice Christmas meal and you're using celery, you keep that little base and you keep it in water. And then by the time spring rolls around, you will have some new baby celery, which is really
That's
nice.
so cool.
Yeah, so that takes a little while longer, but if you wanted to start from seed, you certainly could.
Hmm.
I personally am not too good of a green thumb when it comes to home planting. So what I like to do is go to the farmer's market and I like buying the starters.
Oh,
So it's already its own little, bud, and then you just
yes.
take it home and you put it inside of a pot with a little bit of extra soil, or put it into your container that you're gonna have by your window.
Okay.
And then you can put a couple of different herbs there, and then you just keep them watered and happy, and you keep them right by the light, and then all summer you have nice herbs to work with.
That's awesome. And that's also another great bonding moment too with family to see something that you've planted grow and, be able to use it while you're cooking.
100%. Another great option, if you wanted to grow your own food, but you don't necessarily have a yard, is urban gardening. I highly recommend people to find their local urban gardens if they're around. Um, you just go, they'll ask you to fill out an application. Perhaps you pay in a fee, but it's a co-op fee in order to keep the community garden going and accessible to
So
everybody, which
cool.
is so important.
Yes.
The city that I live nearby over here in the Adirondacks, there's a lot of brown space, which is where buildings have been knocked down and there's just large swaths of dirt fields that nobody's been using. So the local city has been doing an initiative to turn them into urban gardens. And
That
it's
is
a great
awesome.
opportunity. You see people all the time coming over and saying, "Hey, oh my God, you guys are growing food." And we're like, "Yes, come on in." Um, just kind of educate them on what's going on. And, if they're interested, they can take an application and, they get all the support that they need, to if you've never grown before, they'll
Okay.
partner you up with somebody, and
That's
I've worked in quite a couple of urban gardens in different cities, and they all kind of seem to work in that way where, it's just such a community.
It really
They
is.
want to see you succeed. If they get most excited if they hear that you've never grown before,
Oh,
they're like,
okay.
"Oh my God, yes, let me help you." And I think that's a great way of, being more connected to nature
Hmm.
and having a better understanding of where your food comes from, even if you're living in a huge city like New York City.
Definitely, definitely. So what other insight do you have for us for food therapy and mindful eating that we can all take away and just even start small, and then if they're interested, you know, reach out to you and maybe do an online class for everybody else who's not near local to you.
Absolutely. Well, I definitely want to go over, some of the benefits
Yes.
of therapeutic cooking, just so that people, at the very least, if they have that as a takeaway, you know, they can go ahead and look it up on their own. So, there have been countless studies that show that therapeutic cooking improves your mood. It increases your mindfulness, which is what we talked about, where, you're using it as a meditative process where you're shutting everything else out and you're not thinking about anything else except for the process of making your food.
Right.
Um, it teaches patience because people want to constantly just rush through things and
Oh,
have and have this meal in front of them, but food doesn't work that way. You
right.
know, there are going to be certain things that you're going to make that are going to take time. If all you're doing is boiling spaghetti, guess what? You still have to wait for that pot to boil,
You do.
and it's hard for some people, but then after a while, they understand, that it's okay to slow down. And then once they understand that it's okay to slow down in the kitchen, they're starting to make that connection in other parts of their life as well,
That's
because they're
awesome.
seeing how great it makes them feel to slow down here. And I want that feeling in every other part of my life. And you deserve that,
Hmm.
So I always try to remind people you deserve to be able to slow down. Um, it lowers stress. It allows you to use all of your senses. You know, food is something that, you're touching, you're feeling in your mouth, you're feeling textures, you're tasting, you're obviously smelling, and it smells amazing. You can
Yes.
hear the food. I love hearing the sounds of like onions hitting a skillet with
Oh,
the onions.
yes.
I love that
I
so
love
much.
it.
Um, and it also activates your intuition. Um,
Mm.
our lovely sixth sense that does not get talked about quite enough. I think a lot of people, especially when they're starting out cooking, if they're terrified about it, it's because they're not trusting their own instincts. And I
Right.
ask them, well, you may not have cooked before, but have you eaten before? And they're like, yes.
It's
And I
like,
go,
yeah, of course.
well then I think you know what good food tastes like.
Hmm.
So follow the recipe. Stop constantly second guessing yourself. Pay attention to every single time your mind is telling you, giving you negative self-talk,
Right.
telling you that you can't do this, you're going to mess it up. Just ignore that. Keep following the recipe. Taste along the way so that you can adjust it to how you want it, because that recipe is not a one size fits all.
Exactly.
We're all different. And then by the time they're done, they're so excited because they realized, okay, I thought I needed to tweak it a little bit and it turned out great. I should be trusting my inner voice more. And
Yes.
it's so important.
Oh, I love it.
Um, yeah. And yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everybody was really clear on, how
Definitely.
amazing therapeutic cooking is.
It is. It is. And I never even thought of it that way. So I'm so glad that we got to talk more in depth on it, because it definitely is therapeutic. And when you're cooking, it just really just transforms your day and your mood. Like you said, you hear it, you see it, you taste it, you touch it. And my favorite part is not even myself eating it. I think it's more of everybody else enjoying it and then wanting
Yeah,
seconds and there being nothing left.
yeah, yeah. And that's another great part too, is that, when you're using it as a form of self-care, it's that much more intimate when you're sharing it with other people.
Yes.
Sharing food with people you love, especially sharing food that you made for them, it's one of my favorite love
I
languages.
love it. I love it. I'm
It
like,
absolutely is.
do
You
you
know,
like it? Is it good?
waiting,
I'm
waiting.
watching every bite. I'm like, everybody in the
Oh,
office with Nannocare, I'm always trying to make something for them. I'm like, guess what I made? I made something. I'm bringing something. So I love it, and they're my family. So our Nannocare family, we share, you know, food with each other, and it's really important for us to stay connected that way too. So I really love that you said that other companies are also implementing that, because when you can cook together and you can eat together, it just really does create a bond and it's familial.
it really is.
So awesome. Well, I want to thank you for joining me today and joining us.
Thank you so much
And
for having
we
me.
have the lovely Vanessa Opal June. Tell us how we can get in contact with you and everybody else who's out there watching.
Sure. So you can find me on social media at Vanessa Opal June. I actually have a separate Instagram feed for all of my food recipes and therapeutic cooking. It's Aesthete.Kitchen. You can find the link to that also inside of my bio here.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, I just wanted to kind of keep all of my ridiculous food feed where I can't stop snapping pictures a little separate from all of my other health self-care stuff. I'm a little bit of a food dork that way. Um, and You can reach me also through my website. It's vanessaopaljune.com. If you have any questions, you can DM me, you can send me an email. You're always welcome. I'm always happy to answer questions
Awesome.
or offer a 30-minute consultation to answer any questions that you have because I want to make sure that you're able to find the right outlets for your own self-care that are going
Yes.
to be something that you'll be able to take with you.
Oh, that's just awesome. I love it. You enjoy that lovely weather over there, and I hope
Oh,
to
I
connect
shall.
again soon.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. You have a wonderful rest of your day.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.